This is a game that actually is on the other side of the coin. It's all about experience. It's a game called Vernum 6. These games have been around forever. Spiderweb Software has been making these games since 1994. And it still looks like they're still stuck in 1994. Every time he makes a new game, he upgrades 2 pieces of art. So it's like the character portraits, it's like some of them, he hired someone to do 3 pieces of art for this game, right? So some of the character portraits are better. Still not good. But when I say that the experience of the game is really fun, the mechanics of the game really not that interesting. It's sort of a classic RPG, and it's not really all that balanced. And the strategy is, it's fine, but it's an RPG, right? So that's pretty classic. But he's a great writer, and the world is gigantic. And I know, a couple of weeks ago, a bunch of indie people got together and did all these blog posts, and were like, "Oh, length of the game shouldn't matter. You can make a game really, really short." But the fact of the matter is, one of the things that's so cool about this game is it is fucking gigantic. It's like you can play this thing for 100 hours, and the world is huge. And part of the experience of playing the game is feeling like the world is just so fully realized, and it's an entire world. So it's an RPG. It's set underground. This is the 6th version of it, and the mushrooms that the people harvest for food underground have a blight, and so they're dying out. So it's famine down there, and wars are breaking out, and stuff like that.
It's chaos.
It's chaos. But all of the games are fantastic. So if you're into classic RPGs, CRPGs, go check it out. You will enjoy yourself and waste many hours. Spiderwebsoftware.com or Vernum.com. And then the last one is a recent one. It's free. It's Chapter 1 of The Journey Down, which is just a classic Monkey Island-style LucasArts adventure game, point-and-click. Same bad puzzles that have always been in those point-and-click adventure games. But there's a reason that we played them. They're really funny. The music is fantastic. The art is fantastic, and it's super cohesive. So the experience of playing the game is great. The mechanics, not so much, right? So anyways, I just want to close with a plea to game designers and also to you guys to try and help direct us and create a demand and a market for games that have really central or really strong central mechanics. Games in which all the bits and pieces work together in order to create a good experience and to create those fun bits as a commodity, but also in some way have that handcraftedness of these other games that really create a beautiful, fun experience at the same time. That's certainly what I'm going for with Monaco, and that's something I'd like to encourage designers, and that's my game puke.
All right. Okay, so that's all of the content we have prepared for you today. Andy, since you have the walk-around mic, maybe you could go around. I don't know. We have about 15 minutes for just chit-chat and questions.
No, it's okay. It's going to be like tower defense. People can throw things at me as I walk out the back.
So it's a question for us.
Oh, it wasn't really a question, just to say, don't play a Vernum if you're an indie developer trying to actually get a game out the door.
Too big.
Just don't bother.
Anyone else? Oh, there's one back.
Are most of these games on Mac, or are they mostly on PC?
Most of the stuff that I showed was available on PC, but a couple are available on Mac, like Windows Still you can play on a Mac.
Yeah, a lot of these games are also browser-based, which tends to work pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Up here in front.
Sorry about my bad language. I didn't realize there's so many people in the crowd.
Microphones in the middle, too.
There's also, there's a mic in the middle. If you
They're everywhere. If you line up at the microphones, I bet that would work.
Go ahead.
Okay, how did you find out about these games?
Oh, we're psychic. All indie developers have this weird chip that allows us to talk to each other when we're not moving our mouths. No.
Wow, I want to be one.
You have to be blooded in.
I mean, so a good answer to that is a lot of us didn't. So I was watching this panel and I didn't know 75% of the games up there. I knew my games and I knew 1 or 2 of the other games that went up there, but most of them were news to me. So we all chose the games.
The Indie Games blog, indiegames.com/blog, is a great blog. He doesn't do a lot of in-depth coverage, but he does very pretty much blanket covers. I'd probably say 80% of the stuff that's out, 75% of the stuff that's out there.
Take
And
Source
then
is
Take
also
Source, of course,
Take
is
Source
there
is
is Source.
Yeah.
But it's not as blanket as
No,
indie
it's
games
not.
is.
It's pretty specific.
Yeah.
Right?
Indie games is
We'll
pretty
put
current.
links to those on the slides when we put them
Yeah,
out.
I'll put the slides up, and then we'll see if we can get them to post them up on Take Source and Indie Games as well.
Okay, I didn't know if this was on. Hi. That was actually really great, but I was talking to, sorry, excuse me. And I was talking to Erin, who made Puzzlebox, because she's in the PAX 10, and I met her at GDC and talked to some other developers there. And so that was a very different scene, and she really nailed that today, because I said, there was someone else asking, what's the big wave in games? What's the big trend in games? And she said, well, social networking. And you don't see anything of that here. But like at GDC, there are a lot of indie developers that are either doing their own thing and keeping their eye on social/iPhone games, or even actively doing it. So, curious what you guys think about the fact that PAX is so different than that. There's nothing in the way of a Facebook game anywhere here.
Well,
what do you guys think of that?
I was clicking on cows underneath the table.
I mean, I think to some extent what we tried to do when we put the panel together was think about what you guys would like, what's out there in terms of the PAX crowd, what you've experienced. I was really hoping that more people would have played the games that I picked, because they're fairly accessible and like straight up, atmospheric games. But as you can see, even with the stuff that we picked, you don't have a lot of reach. So we may be tuning this to the content to the crowd, but it's a really good point. I only had one iPhone game in my slides.
Yeah,
So.
Oh no, I didn't mean I didn't mean what games you picked. I meant the fact that PAX itself, I think, is so.
I think the people at PAX like interesting games. No offense meant, but I think in general.
There's no reason that the Facebook game couldn't be interesting.
I think, and I know
it's amazing that
there's-
there aren't more.
There are
right?
some indie folk that are making social games that I think will be interesting, but in general, other than Cow Clicker, which I think is extremely interesting, I don't know, it's extremely interesting as an idea, but really, like, most of the games that are still enjoyable are not really interesting.
I read somewhere that Backyard Monsters was supposed to be a Farmville for people who like RTSs. It is not. That's such a lie. Backyard Monsters is such a freaking clone.
I guess
I hate Backyard Monsters.
I think Zynga's going to come have me off. But.
Yeah, I don't want
Nice
to
knowing
hate,
you all.
but it is a very difficult space to make an independent game in right now. One of the hardest problems for social games is getting over the fold, like just having anything that shows up at the top level on a Facebook site, or eventually say on the Google site when Google does their own game selection criteria. Those lists, the things that come up in the iTunes and stuff, it's very difficult to get on those lists. And so an indie person can put a game up on their website, distribute it for free. It's like, yeah, it's a picture game. You jump this little 3-pixel grapefruit-sized guy around, and it's just easier to release on those platforms. There's a lot less hassle, but hopefully those barriers will become less. And our friends will be able to get their games up, and they'll be profitable. I mean, it's just very difficult sometimes to get something out there in that space. Next question?
Yeah, I'm curious how feasible you think it is these days for single shops or two-people shops to actually create a good, immersive, comprehensive, lengthy game.
Osmos, the last one in my game, was made by two guys, and like I said, it was top downloadable for a week.
Yeah,
the
Andy
last
did.
one.
How did that work out?
The game,
Yeah.
my game Monaco, which won the IGF this year, is just me so far. And the games I've done in the past have been more people, but this one I kind of said it wasn't even supposed to be a big game, and then it was good. So
Two of the 5 people on this panel work in micro teams, so.
I mean, another thing to think about is, generally speaking, when you are working in a team like that, you have to figure out really smart, intelligent ways to make the game work, right? So, like, going and making a game with photorealistic graphics, or making a game where, there's going to be incredible voice acting for every single part of every character, like, that won't work. But if you can do something that, like, has
you
a
get that
really...
stuff. Voice 1, 2, 3. You just post your stuff.
If you can figure out a way to do something that's really smart and catchy, and that, like, is not an impossible thing to build, you can definitely do that with 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, I mean, even the games at TGC Flower was made with 6 people full time, and Journey is 9, 10 people. So you can do a lot with a few people if everybody is smart but lazy.
Well, and you got to design your game around the idea of you have to design your game around your team size. You just have to.
Exactly.
So.
Next question.
Hey, I just had two things. I don't know if you talked about this one game in the first 10 minutes. I unfortunately missed it. But this game called VV.
Yeah.
VV.
I think he says 6 Vs, I think that's what you're supposed to say. Yeah.
Yeah, that game's totally awesome. Also, there's been some...